I'm here with Chris Bailey from Jigsaw24, which I'm very excited about. So Chris, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll kick this conversation off.
Yeah, hi Karen. Yes, I'm Chris Bailey. So I'm from Jigsaw24 and the media side of the business. My current job title is the head of innovation and also the media solutions lead. I've been in the industry for 26 years, specifically in media, from anything from support engineering through to pre-sales and now into innovation. So looking at like future-based products and how we can tie workflows together for the broadcast and post-production industry.
All right, thank you. So we, meaning Leostream and Jigsaw24, we have an announcement coming out about some exciting steps we're taking with our partnership, but we've actually been partners since 2017, and you've been a part of that partnership all along.
Yeah, it's I think it might even go a bit further back than that. So with Route 6, so I was ex Route 6 before Jigsaw acquired Route 6, and we've been working with Leostream for as long as I can remember. We were really starting to kind of pioneer the remote workflows as well as on premise. We were doing it quite a long time before anybody else, really, certainly in the UK. And we were partnering up with Amulet Hotkey at the time, where we were using their endpoints, and that was all in the kind of Teradici Terra 1 days as well. So, and you guys were providing all the authentication, the brokering for it, and also at the point when we got to remote workflows, the gateway. So yeah, really long relationship, and been some amazing jobs that we've done over the years.
Yeah, I know obviously 2020 was an interesting year for everyone, and we meaning Leostream did a lot of work to add that gateway support in for those Terra 1 and then Terra 2 cards. And that was a good use case for us then. But I'm sure over the years, the use cases that you've seen have changed. So what are you focusing on these days?
Yeah, so if we go back a little bit, so yeah, kind of everything on premise where we were doing for a large sports provider, 80 plus desktops that are on premise, but with the workstations tucked away in a machine room and a very large building, and giving access to them from all the edit suites. That was kind of really where we first started off with this kind of standard brokering side, and then obviously we'd been kind of really working on the remote stuff, and when you guys released the gateway was a huge stepping stone for us, and we embraced that pretty early on. And not to say our customers didn't know, but they found it quite funny that we thought remote would kind of be a thing in M&E, because obviously you guys have slightly different industries to the media side at that point, and we were really kind of pushing this into media where after the Sony hack and all those kinds of things, it really was a contentious subject of doing remote. And then COVID happened, so we were in a really good place. Our entire demo estate was already set up for remote access to desktops, whether it be through PC over IP at the time, or RDP or something along those lines. We were stuck at home, and all of our customers were coming to us going, "You remember that thing that you showed us a while back that we kind of laughed about a little bit and went, yeah, we won't do that in the media industry. The other guys can have it. We need to do that now. How can we do it?" And we put some incredible things together, certainly for a lot of the large film houses as well. I think we did about $1 billion worth of feature films during that, and it was all based on. It wasn't so much a standalone, sorry, so much facility-based environment. They wanted them all kind of standalone, so we were kind of cookie cutter in them as well for each production, because they're all slightly different. But it was all based on Leostream brokering with the Leostream gateway, and at that point it was generally all Terra 2 PC over IP, really kind of before the HP Anywhere kind of software bit kind of took over. But and that really kind of set the stage for us to do this at the end of COVID and coming out of COVID, to basically put this facility wide across a lot of our larger customers. So that was across news organizations and very large post facilities as well. So brokering 60 plus workstations, for instance, at various organizations and up. And then we started kind of really focusing on virtualization, and the price of hardware was getting harder and real estate was getting more expensive. So we were really kind of pushing virtualization. Our demo estate had already been built on VMware as well as EXSI, so we were already brokering remote desktops via the gateway and Leostream to our VMware estate, and then we switched over to Nutanix. So that was a kind of really good step for us, and we've done many deployments of a large Nutanix stacks across various customers, and always using Leostream as the brokerage and the gateway for, again, in where we still were at the time was is PC over IP, which is kind of industry wide. And giving us that ability to to scale into extra clusters, or if we have anything that's in AWS or in Azure or in Google Cloud or something along those lines, or scale computing, we're able to have a single platform with the ability to scale across it and have different workloads across things.
That's amazing. So it sounds like your team really has that expertise to handle
Yeah,
all of the different infrastructures and
I think
display
we've seen
protocols
it
that
all. Yeah, yeah,
Leostream can
yeah.
do. So as you've talked a lot about M&E, but are you seeing any sort of convergence between the IT that's required for an M&E and in for other types of use cases?
Massively. I'd say certainly, and I think COVID's had a lot to do with that. There was a little bit of it going on before COVID, but since COVID, obviously with the remote requirements, where the kind of traditional engineering role in M&E was, was very much focused around the media part, and they would do a bit of the networking. Actually, it's now kind of taken over more by a larger IT department, who may not have so much media expertise. So the nice thing about this solution, and certainly with Leostream, was being able to kind of provide all the documentation and provide all of the technical stuff that they needed to make sure that it was secure, and that we had really good relevant case studies in secure environments like big film houses and news houses and large post-production facilities, to show that this was the right solution for them, and that took off really well. We do have various agencies as well, as always has been a really good one for us for Leostream outside, that isn't so much on the media end of it, but also with various parts of bigger broadcast organizations where they may have PC over IP that's on premise for their editors, but they also have a lot of kind of admin machines in AWS that were actually brokered by DCV instead. And we'd put the right solution in there, so they could literally just turn on the protocol and that was it. They had a lot of stack of RDP Windows servers they just needed kind of basic access to, that wasn't really in the kind of high performance display protocol route. So we didn't need to worry about that because we'd already put Leostream in, and we would just set up a new policy, new protocol to allow the gateway to render HTML5 RDP, and that was an absolute game changer. So one platform, one pane of glass, and you'd broker pretty much every environment, whether it's the media side, the infrastructure side, the IT side. It's still really working well for us.
That's amazing. I love hearing stories like this because it really highlights the flexibility of our platform. And I don't always get to know, we hand someone the software, I don't always get to know exactly what they're doing, but to hear how it can be used against all these use cases, that's absolutely amazing. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because you
Yeah.
mentioned security, but what are some of the aspects that come into play when you're building these environments to ensure the security of it?
So usually the first question is, can they support our IDP? Can we support, our Active Directory, whether it's on premise or in Azure? Can we support our multi-factor authentication? Can we do things like single sign-on? Where do the machines need to live, or where do the servers live in the infrastructure? And we're generally happy to kind of tackle all of those. Obviously, everybody's slightly different, but we haven't come across one where the security implications are too much. I know you guys have probably done a lot in defense as well, so there's various things that you guys can do. But I remember having a bundle a while ago of literally documentation from you guys, which was just absolutely invaluable, that we would just send to customer and go, right, if you want to learn like all the technical details in terms of kind of security and things like that, you can consume here, rather than me kind of spending an hour on a phone to you, and you can make sure that everything's in there. So we obviously have to kind of abide by stuff like TPN, so trusted partner network and all the SOC 2 stuff as well. So um, usually the first part of any tender these days as well is generally around security,
Hmm.
around compliance, and also around sustainability as well. So those things get asked straight away, and we tend to tackle with them immediately. And onto your point earlier, it's generally the IT team that we're tackling first rather than the actual creatives and the media engineers. So
Hmm.
once IT are happy with security compliance stuff, it can then get fed to the media side, who can then, get what they want really, which is, all the flashy bits on the back end.
Right. And that kind of brings me to the next topic. So the flashy bits in the back end, a lot of that for the creatives, it's dependent on the display protocol that they're using for that connection. And I know you've talked about PC over IP a lot, so I'm going to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
What are your plans now that the HP Anywhere end of life announcement's out?
Great question. I think, where, and I spoke to Randy about this at NAB as well, and it was great to have a catch up with him there, was, coming out of the blue, and we've got a very large, as you guys know, a very large installation base of PC over IP, HP Anywhere, across, many customers, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of seats. So it was quite a tricky one. I think where the benefit of having a platform like Leostream in there is the choice of display protocols that you can choose from. So, I remember when you guys released the support for DCV inside of the gateway, and that was huge for us because we did have customers who wanted to expand into AWS, where EC2 were giving you free DCV license, and that made it such an easy transition where they would keep the PCFRP stuff on prem, and they didn't want to kind of pay extra for things that we're getting for free up there. And that was just an absolutely seamless transition to DCV. So DCV would absolutely be an option. We've also been exploring the TGX route as well for kind of high performance graphics, and I have a large kind of use case for that at the moment. And obviously there's no machine as well, so they would be our kind of go-tos. Mac is the biggest issue because obviously being media like Windows, we don't have a problem. I think we're kind of pretty sorted in that kind of area. But where you need Mac OS support for the host end is the bit that we really need to kind of iron out and do a bit more testing on performance. But there are definitely options within that, like No Machine, for instance, that can allow us to do that. So it's we've got to look at a path to transition our larger customers as well and get them to test specific display protocols for their usage as well. The post-COVID era was a lot around having the right platform in, which was Leostream, and we're absolutely certain about that. But each requirement from different departments was different. So, as I said earlier, some people like PC over IP for this. The editors specifically did. Some people like DCV for this. RGS as well was another kind of much lighter weight version. So we were seeing a lot of stuff being done through facilities that way. But again, we were just using the Leostream broker and the gateway to get access. So there's a lot of testing to be done there. And there's other bits out there in terms of display protocols that I know you guys are agile enough to potentially broker. Maybe again a conversation I had with Randy.
That's a
So
little
yeah,
spoiler alert on some new items that might be coming down the pike to help our Mac
maybe.
OS customers.
Perfect. That's exactly what we want to hear, and that's why we want to partner with you guys and have had this relationship for so long, because you have been agile enough in including display protocols that some people may not have ever heard of because it's not the thing that they're told they have to use, like
Mhm.
HP Anywhere, for instance, which is a good example.
Right. Yeah. No, we've got some exciting things coming down that I can't talk about now, but in the next few releases, you'll see some new things to help our Mac OS. And that's the nice thing about how we're architected. We're agile as a company, but the code base itself, the way that we integrate with all these third parties, it does make it easier, I think, for some
Yeah,
platforms to add new protocols, add
yeah,
support for new infrastructure. And you mentioned you're moving a lot to Nutanix. So
yeah.
are you seeing that in general, or are there other kind of VMware vSphere replacements that you're seeing out there?
Yeah, so Yeah, we made the move to Nutanix quite a while ago now from VMware. Obviously, the Broadcom acquisition has made things a bit more interesting in terms of price wise, and the other hyperconverged infrastructure vendors are going after a bit of that market. So, where you've got Nutanix, we've put that into quite a few large facilities and broadcasters. Again, all Leostream backed. And the real key to that is the provisioning side, is the full API integration that you guys have with it with AHV, where we're able to provision edit suites based off an image with typing in a number. It's great, having we don't in media we don't so much use ephemeral VMs like they might do in finance so much, but the idea of having this scale up, scale down where you need it, and certainly the kind of burst to the cloud as well is where our customers seeing got one eye on the cloud, but actually the economics of it doesn't work. When you've got 60 edit suites on 24 hours a day or more, we have one customer that has over 120 on Nutanix, all brokered by Leostream. Having that sitting in the cloud running 24 hours a day with your storage, it's not really economical. So the idea of actually maybe we might want to take a workstation up in AWS or a couple up there, we can use Leostream to provision them up there. And then once they're done, they can shut down to save costs, all done via the power controls with the Leostream agent. So super powerful in that way. We've done a bit of look at scale computing as well in terms of just kind of standard server virtualization for smaller virtual estates, but where we're concentrating on GPU acceleration for edit suites would be kind of Nutanix would be our kind of main go-to for that kind of part, really.
Gotcha.
And a good example of that is, our entire demo room has been, and our entire demo estate has been on Nutanix now for 4 or 5 so years. And again, with Leostream running the whole thing, like even MPTS, so the show we did last week in London, we didn't take any hardware with us. We just took our laptops and a couple of thin clients, and we remoted into everything via Leostream, whether we were using the PCFRP protocol, and we actually using quite a few servers over RDP over HTML5. So it was completely flexible. I could change it based on bandwidth requirements because trade show internet is not great.
Right. We've all been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned another piece of the infrastructure that we haven't talked about yet, which is thin clients. So what types of thin clients do you typically deploy?
So we've been an Amulet Hotkey partner for a very long time, and actually it was through their partnership as well where we got introduced to you guys a very long time ago, and that became our kind of real staple of endpoints where we were using standard zero clients. I still have one on my desk here. Still works really nicely. Going in via Leostream to the office or to any one of the VMs that are sitting on our demo estate. And the important thing about those guys is that they are really tied up in security as well. That's their kind of main selling point, is the fact that everything's manufactured in the UK. There's no outside components. They're sold predominantly to defense as well, and oil and gas, and these kind of industries where security's super important. And obviously for us at that time, security was a thing. So it still is in media, and media is even more important to the to people in media. Like, no, defense. Surely Disney's more important, or Warner Brothers are more important than, let's say, something else. So yeah, we've partnered with them for a long time, and through various operating systems as well. So whether it was the standard zero client builds, or where we went through kind of Stratadesk and now to kind of iGel through them. But again, whether we're using the PCRP agent via Leostream or via the web browser version, or through Leostream Connect, we've got the ability on those platforms to have secure endpoints that are managed via the team, and also with the security and the brokering part through Leostream.
So many moving parts.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the future. What direction do you see the industry going and Jigsaw24 going?
Again, great question. AI is always a fun one to talk about, isn't it? But yeah, I think certainly where we are, and it was really fascinating to see at NAB, but we saw a little bit of this at IBC, was actually collaboration between vendors, and it was the first time I'd actually seen it at NAB, was large vendors who would generally be pretty siloed and segregated actually on each other's stands and actually promoting other people's products. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And actually creating these integrations and these really tight integrations. It's great to see and encouraging to see a lot of our partners working together to create integrations that are just going to work for the customer and not being these kind of vendor lock-ins. And again, you guys are great at that because you're the pane of glass, but you're actually working with display protocol providers to to be able to tap into whatever they want to do. So that was a kind of really interesting for me to see at NAB, but also that leads on to the future as well, where everything's being tied through API. Certainly in the media industry, this kind of idea of of a platform being able to pick and choose which AI you might want to use, or which transcoding platform you want to use, or what storage you want to use, or which display protocol you want to use, or any one of those kind of things. The idea is being able to do it simply, quickly, and easily. And even stuff like workflow creation and orchestration can be done pretty simply now, and it's here to stay. Even with the AI building your kind of orchestration and automation stuff is pretty fascinating. The issue for me with that is what happens to the human, but in the way. But the whole idea is it's just increasing efficiency across the board for the whole media supply chain, and whether that's accessing stuff inside the building securely from kind of endpoints via something like Leostream, or whether that's externally, whatever's best to create an efficiency is what our customers are looking for. And we're at a really good point now where the kind of AI hype has really kind of gone away, and now it's actually being used practically and in anger for use cases that we didn't think it would get to. But it's moving at such a rapid rate of pace that it's kind of really tricky to catch up. And certainly for my role, it's making sure that we're on top of that and we're putting the right components together within a kind of platform to make people's workflows more efficient.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up with one last question, which is to, where can people learn more about Jigsaw24?
Yeah, so if so, there's two parts of a business. So there's the kind of big Apple side, we're an AER, and there's the Jigsaw24 media site. So I think it's media slash jigsaw24.com. So if you go onto the jigsaw24.com website, there is a tab that you can switch to the media side if you want. So that you can explore all of the media applications, solutions that we provide for post and broadcast, news, live, etc. And then on the other side is our kind of more core business, where we look at IT infrastructure, Apple infrastructure, and things like that. And that's really where a benefit for Leostream comes in for us as well, because we have two kind of large sets of the business which are so blended in the middle now. A lot of the technology that we have in media is being used inside of these large corporate entities. So something like Leostream, for instance, is a great example of that, where people are gaining access to their IT infrastructure via Leostream. Where which is kind of where something like VPAM is really exciting as well. Being able to offer that, kind of attended version, or you could probably explain it a lot better, Karen, but in the way that you allow someone access rather than this kind of team viewer stuff, which is becoming a bit more of a no-no in these businesses. So whether people have actual rights access to that via the Leostream platform, or whether they're going to be granted access via the VPAM platform, I think could be really positive for everybody for just support reasons as well.
Awesome. That was another little spoiler alert for our new product that's coming out for that VPAM, which is also going to have some additional use cases we'll talk about in maybe our next podcast. Chris, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed really hearing about all the use cases that your team is working with there, and I look forward to many years of our partnership together.
Great. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.